Hello, Podcast Nation. I'm so excited. The infamous, the one and only Sam Hewitt is here. She is the Director of Realtor Development with the best brokerage in the world, Royal LePage Signature. Sam, thank you so much for making the drive and for making the time. And I know this because you have no time whatsoever. So thank you so much for coming to speak your truth on the Be Great, Be Kind, Steve Kim Experience podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being asked as a guest. I love everything you're doing.
When I was thinking of it, when I was conceptualizing the podcast, you were like at the forefront. I'm going to be honest, I was always nervous to ask you because I just knew how ferociously busy you were, being a rock star, director of realtor development, a phenomenal mother, wife. Like, you wear so many hats. So I was so nervous because I knew if I asked you, you'd say yes.
Of course.
But if you said yes, I knew you were sacrificing time elsewhere. So I was always reluctant to ask you.
Thanks.
So thank you so much. So Sam Hewitt, let's get right into it. For maybe the one or two people who don't know who you are, tell us, who is Sam Hewitt?
Who is Sam Hewitt?
Yeah.
So Sam Hewitt, I should write my personal ad if I was single. I'm not single, but in case I was. Sam Hewitt is a wife, a mother. Sam Hewitt is a working woman raising humans. I am the Director of Realtor Development for Royal LePage Signature, which is basically a fancy way of saying my mandate is to help our sales team achieve their goals and help sort of develop them and, you know, skills and confidence and mindset and all of these sort of pieces of the puzzle. And as a former top selling realtor, I think I'm pretty well qualified to do that. So I'm sort of Signature's unofficial cheerleader, or official cheerleader, really. I mean,
Your Signature's mother.
I feel like
like I've even heard from other agents, Sam Hewitt is the mother of our office.
Yes.
Like, you go to her before you go to anyone else.
Yeah.
So it's such a massive compliment.
Thanks.
But you were pulled in virtually every direction at all hours of the day. How do you shut off?
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I'm working personally on right now is stillness. And my coach tells me that we came up with this thing called the island of calm.
Okay,
And so when I'm having those days or those moments or those weeks where I hair on fire, I sit and I close my eyes for a second and I say, okay, I'm going to the island of calm. And I think about what are the things that I need to do to get me to that island, and that's sort of how I help. Process. But truth be told, ever since I was from a very young age, stillness is not my strength. I do like being busy, so it does, I am well suited to it. Sure. And I think like anybody else, I mean, if you're susceptible to going really, really quickly a lot, you have to protect yourself from burnout, and that, that looks different for different people. For me, it's, practicing stillness and trying to meditate, although I think I do it wrong.
I think we all do it wrong.
I think
Even me too. I think I'm meditating right now.
As soon as I sit down, I'm like, what am I thinking about the grocery list? Like, this can't be right. Must be missing something. Yeah. But that's sort of how I help, keep myself on my island of calm when I need it.
So let's backtrack a little, because you're not that old. You're not old at all. Who was Sam Hewitt as a kid?
Gosh,
Tell us a little bit about that.
You should have my mom here. My mom would tell you awesome stories. Believe it or not, you probably won't believe this. Believe it or not, as a kid, I was ultra shy.
Really?
Ultra shy. I would follow my mom around at 6 years old. I couldn't let her out of my sight. I was super shy. I was a very shy kid. My mom tells me this story. She'll tell it to you sometimes, I'm sure, where I got called to the principal's office. And the principal called my mom. And my mom was like, no, you have the wrong kid. Yeah, for sure you have the wrong kid. And they're like, no, it's definitely your kid. So sure enough, she, trots down to the school, and I'm sitting in the principal's office, and she says, what happened? And the principal said, your daughter pushed a boy. And my mom says, that's impossible. Yeah. And the principal, she pushed a boy. So my mom says, what happened? And I said, I pushed him. And I says, well, why? And I said, well, he pulled my hair. Yeah. And the principal says to the teacher, I never saw that. That didn't happen. Yeah. She's making it up. My mom says, well, my child does not make things up. Let her go back to class. We'll deal with this later. So back to class I go. The next day, again, the principal calls. No. So my mom finds the teacher and says, I want you to watch my daughter at recess. So sure enough, the teacher goes out, and every time I would skip through the playground, this boy would pull my hair. And I would turn around and push him.
Good for you.
So from then on in, my mom said, if a boy pushes you again, if he touches your hair, if he does anything you're not comfortable with, you punch him in the face.
Great advice, Mama Hewitt.
Great advice.
I love that.
So I never did punch anyone in the face, but as a kid, I was very shy.
Wow.
Very, very shy.
So then, okay, so as you kind of evolve into who you are,
into this,
but now, like, you were one of the top agents in Toronto GTA. That's a huge shift from super shy to being out there.
Yeah, huge shift.
What was it like? Tell me that path. Like, how did you always want to be a realtor? I don't know.
I didn't. No, I didn't. I actually, I sort of had a great. I loved school. Yeah. Given what I do, it really makes sense. I loved school. I loved learning. And I loved high school. Like, a lot of people hated it. There were times I hated it, but I had a good high school career. I was on the honor roll. I was president of the athletic council. I was female athlete of the year. Wow. And then I went to university and I fell flat on my face in the first year. Yeah. I couldn't make friends. I had anxiety. I hated class. It was so big. I felt, nameless and faceless. And I really had a hard time kind of finding my way. And my parents got my grades and they were like, you're coming home. Yeah. So I came home after first year. I was at Mac and my mom said, you got to figure this out. Like, what are you doing? You can't just go to school and get bad grades and not have a path. And so I came home and fumbled around for a little bit. And a girlfriend of mine was working in a real estate office as a receptionist. Yeah. And she said, I can get you a job. Come work here part-time. So I did. Her and I, had fun and answered phones and, booked showings and talked to realtors. And this man came in. Their number one agent came in, and I hadn't met him yet. And he was standing over the front desk. It was one of those elevated front desks where, the receptionists are sort of down here and he's above us. And he sort of passed by. And it was in the days when the agents used to have to mark themselves in. So you knew they were in the office. Yeah. So he walks by and he says, can you mark me in? And he just sort of keeps walking. And I said, I don't know what that is. But my friend had been on break and it was just me. So I'm like, oh, now what do I do? So I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know your name. And he walks back and he's standing right above me and he puts his hand down on the table and he says, you don't know who I am? And I said, no, I don't. Yeah. So he told me his name, which I won't tell you. He's still in the business. And he said, I am so-and-so. And he smacked his hand down again, right in front of my face. And I said, thank you so much, so-and-so. And so we walked away, and my friend came back and sat down. And I said, that?
So pleasant.
Sure. And we started having this conversation. And she said, well, I don't get it. Like, do you want to be a realtor? And I said, I hadn't really thought about it. And she said, well, he's not smarter than you are. Yeah. He's not better with people, obviously. Yeah. If you want to do it, go do it.
Love it.
So I became an assistant to one of the top agents in the office at the time, a woman, and that was an instrumental experience for me, learning from her and, having her mentor me and listening to the way she communicated to people. And it gave me that feeling where even my mentor, I realized there wasn't a lot of fundamental skills separating the two of us. Okay. And I thought I could do what she did.
Great.
So I didn't have a driver's license, which was a small problem for the realtor.
Just a tiny one. And there was no Uber back in the day.
There was no Uber at that point in time. Don't age me too much. But there was no Uber at the time. And so I went and got my license and I bought my very first car and I drove that car the very first day I picked it up to Royal LePage Signature. And I signed my agent, my agent contract or whatever. And
And the rest is all history.
The rest is history.
So you went from top producing agent to director of realtor development.
That's correct. Yes.
What was that moment in time that made you do that? Because from an outsider, you have everything going for you.
Oh, thanks.
To then stop to do something else? What was it? Was it one thing?
It wasn't one thing. No, it was a combination of things. I mean, I think, if you're listening to this podcast and you're someone from the public, I think being a realtor is a tremendous job. It really is, but it is very difficult.
Yes.
And it's demanding and it's emotional and it's, there's a high level of skill that goes into it. And I think the challenge sometimes is that the really good realtors make it look so easy that I think sometimes the public goes, well, that looks easy. Yeah. Can't be that hard. Whereas it's tremendously difficult. Yes. And I have such respect for anyone in this industry that's out there trying to bring value to the people that they serve. And for me, I mean, I wanted something more. I wanted bigger. I've always, I always sort of mentored people when I was on the sales side. If a new agent joined the office, Jeff or Chris, the broker owners of the company, would say, well, go talk to Sam Hewitt. She can help you. She'll answer some questions. I brought on someone to my team who, same thing. Her father was one of my clients, and he said, will you let my daughter follow you around for a little bit? And I was like, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
I really liked that. It was a part of what kind of gave me that mentorship bug. And ultimately, I wanted a bigger platform.
Okay.
And I wanted to spend more time doing what I loved, which at the end of the day is helping people become the best version of who they want to be.
You also have an incredibly magnetic personality, which I think when Chris and Jeff, and huge shout out to them, when they say that, like, it should be like a hashtag, just ask Sam.
Just ask Sam.
But there's comfort in knowing that you're going to take care of them. And that's that magnetic personality that you have, that when people are in crisis or whatever, there's an issue, you're the first person that comes to mind that they come to you. And that's tough for you to always deal with. I do want to go backtrack just a little bit, because you did say something very, very powerful. Me as a former educator, you explained you had a wicked high school experience, and then you jumped into the quasi-real world of post-secondary education, and how you felt is how so many people feel. So many students have felt that. What I love is that you had enough of the self-awareness. Maybe it was your mom kind of being like, well, okay, we're sitting you down. What are you doing now? Right? So kind of having that hard discussion. You realizing being like, okay, so then I'm going to try this out. And you became incredibly successful doing that. What was it, apart from having your mom kind of talk to you about like, hey, you can't continue doing this? Was there something else that kind of like clicked for you? Like for even the students listening in, first year university students, college students, whatever, like they will all feel that. We've all felt the way that you felt.
Yeah.
Well, what's what nugget of advice would you give them?
I think, my shout out to my stepdaughter, Kyra. She's going to university in September. So she leaves in just a month. I can't believe it. And she's going away. Yeah. And we're really proud of her. And she's a super smart girl. She has great grades. And, I
got chills. I miss the teacher in me. I don't know why. When I hear things like that,
I worry about her a little bit, because it's a different experience, and the kids are younger now than they were when we went. Yes. I was 19.
Me too.
And she'll be 17. She is 17. And so it's a different experience. I think one of the things I would say to the students that I said to her is, I think, number one, you have to be patient with yourself and realize it's a completely different world.
Okay.
And I think number two, you have to sort of have an idea of what is your goal? What are you hoping to get out of it?
Sure.
For me, I didn't really know. I knew I didn't want to live at home with my parents. And I knew I thought at the time, believe it or not, I was taking gerontology. I wanted to open retirement homes.
Okay.
But I hadn't quite made the connection to taking this degree versus getting to my goal.
Okay.
And so I think for students, I would really say, you don't have to have it all figured out, but there is a lot of value in figuring out what do the steps look like, and how can I get some information, and who can I talk to, and how can I sort of figure out, is this what I want? Because I don't think there's shame in achieving your goal and realizing it isn't what you want, but I also don't think there's shame in getting part way and saying this isn't for me.
I love that.
And, for me, university wasn't for me. Don't mistake what I'm saying. I had a great time. I had a lovely time.
Cut. Let's.
That's because I didn't go to class.
Yeah.
I didn't really, and it wasn't that I didn't like the learning. I just didn't like the facilitation of the learning. I didn't like the big huge room, and the institution of it wasn't for me.
And do you think that experience has allowed you to be so connected with the one-on-one, like your role now, that you're like, that wasn't a good experience? I didn't like it. I did that as a teacher. I hated that type of massive experience. Yes. I'm just a number, and I'm like, I won't do that when I was in the class. So do you think that's part of?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, I did go back to college when I came home. I was working part-time as a receptionist, and I went back. My parents said, if you're going to get an education, you got to pay for it yourself now.
Sure. Wow.
We gave you the chance. We paid for first year. You flunked. Come home. Too bad for you. So I had to figure it out, and I not only could I not afford to go back to a local university here in Toronto, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, so it didn't make sense to spend the money. And so I took a college course, and college was amazing. I think for the young people listening, it's a completely different animal, and it's smaller classes, and the teachers will talk to you, and you can get FaceTime, and it's a different style of learning. And it was tremendous for me. I loved it. I went to Seneca. Shout out to Seneca for the great things they're doing. I finished a 2-year program. I had an A+ average. I was a great student. It was just more what I was looking for. And then I jumped in full time.
And you had your partying under control.
I did, yeah.
Okay, that's probably like A+.
Yeah, exactly. I was living at home again, so there were stricter rules.
Can we talk about this? Because you're so good at like helping people to do the things that they need to do in their business. All new agents coming out, because there's quite a massive turnover rate in our industry.
Yeah, it's huge.
What's the one or two things, this is a tough question, what's the one or two things that you would love to impart on every new agent coming out? And it could be the same message for those even contemplating wanting to become a realtor. What are those one or two nuggets that you'd like to impart on them?
Yeah,
because you've seen it all.
I've seen it all. I think, what I try to really impart on people when they're starting is that, it's about the connection and the face-to-face, voice-to-voice communication with people. And it's about getting in front of people.
Yeah.
So if that's through social, through video, on the phone, networking events, in your community, in your neighborhood, you have to get in front of people, and you have to speak your why. You've got to be able to tell people why you wanted to become a realtor. I mean, anybody can say, I like houses, but really what pushed you to spend the time and the effort to take the courses to get into this business? What do you believe about real estate? And the second thing I say to people is, it's a lot of heavy lifting in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's, you've got to figure out, we spend a lot of time at Royal LePage Signature really helping people figure out what is your strategy, and here's how we suggest you set it up.
Yeah.
Take what we've already laid out and execute on it. And if you do it consistently, you will be successful.
Yeah.
But the consistency, whether it's in business or, with a diet or with any other sort of adventure in your life, if you're not consistent, you're going to have trouble.
Yeah, and that why is really, really important and powerful. Like it has to light a fire every single day to do the things that that need to get done, and knowing very well that you're not going to hit today, you're not going to hit tomorrow, you may not hit this year or the next 10 years, but your why is so strong and prevalent in your life.
So strong.
And I find even like my short time being full-time real estate, when I speak to other realtors, they can't definitively come up with a why. Yes. It's a tough question. They're like, they hum and haw about it, but it's such a powerful question, right? Because it's so deeply rooted in our motivation to do things.
So deeply. It's in any position you hold, in any sort of career or job or whatever you do with your work life, it's not all sunshine and roses.
No.
And being a realtor and doing some of the activities that aren't fun, if you can't find a way to figure out why you're doing what you're doing, it's hard to motivate yourself to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I try to help people connect that early on.
Okay.
To give you the motivation to do the activities and then follow the activities consistently. Those are my two nuggets. Figure out why you're doing this. Figure out what the activities you need to do to achieve your results are, and do those things consistently.
Okay.
And if you're at Royal LePage Signature, not that I don't think other brokerages do this, but if you're at Royal LePage Signature, we're not perfect for sure, but we get the ability to have a big group of people that are super successful, and we get to see what they're doing. And I think we have a pretty clear idea of what it takes to get where you want to go.
Yeah.
And if you're consistent, you'll get there.
Yeah.
We have people that are tremendously successful early on.
Yeah.
Other people, it takes a few years.
Yeah. No, and that's a huge shout out to the brokerage and to you.
Thanks.
It's a family.
Thanks.
It is as dysfunctional as it probably can be at times, like every other family. It is. I have incredible loyalty to this brokerage, and
Thanks.
It's not the brokerage, it's the people.
It's the people.
It really is the people.
It's the people.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's take our realtor's hat off for a second. What else are you incredibly passionate about? So I know developing people, real estate, things like that. I know the answer to this, but I want this to be a platform because I think it's so tremendously important that we bring more awareness to this. And not just awareness, but take action on these things. So why don't you share with us?
I'm really passionate about women in leadership, and just really women in general.
Yeah.
I've always been, I don't like the term girly girl, but because I'm not, but I've always been sort of a girl's girl. Like I've had a big crew of girlfriends. We really support each other. I really believe in helping women and this mentorship idea, and it's a big passion of mine. It's a big hot button topic right now that you hear a lot of people talking about.
Okay.
And for me, it's something I really, really believe in, especially as it intersects, with motherhood. Because oftentimes, when women become mothers, I certainly experienced it, you feel this loss of yourself.
Okay.
And it sounds cliche, but you find that you're sort of the bottom of the to-do list because all the other things come first. Your work and your kids and your husband and laundry and cooking and all the fun stuff that I hate doing. All of that tends to sort of pile up, and then you're at the bottom.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea behind women in leadership for me is really important from a mother perspective, because how do we help women try to achieve it all? We've fought so hard for equality for all these years, but I think so many of the other pieces of the puzzle haven't evolved as the women's movement has evolved.
Okay. They haven't, right? Like they absolutely haven't. And I want to just share a quick story, because the multitude of hats that you wear as a female, mother, wife, professional, it's constant juggling. And you're absolutely right in that society hasn't set up an environment for that to work in a successful way. So even a close friend of mine, I know, she went on maternity leave. It was a private company. When she came back, they had simply just changed the title of her role, and because of that, they were able to let her go. Just the title of the role. Like, she went through to a lawyer and everything, and it's like, your position no longer exists, and because of that, they can let you go.
We don't need it.
Right?
And it's stories like that that really just totally break my heart.
Right.
And I'm so fortunate because I've worked for, I work with a family, and they're my family, and we're not related, but I've been there for so long, and I have what a lot of women want, which is complete support.
Yeah. And
I have, there's no question on my kids are sick, or there's a doctor's appointment, or I have to go for soccer. There's never a discussion about it. And I think the reason why there isn't is because, number one, the men that I work for have clarity on what it means to be a working mom. But number two, I think it's because I've worked really hard at defining what I do and executing on the things I say I'm going to. So whether it's, if there's something that we're working on and it has to be done, it's going to get done.
Yeah.
It may not get done between 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But it's going to get done.
It's going to get done, yeah.
And, I joke in my presentation sometimes if there's like a typo, it's because it's 5 a.m. and I'm sitting in my closet working on my PowerPoint. And, it's just what happens some days. But it's, that's what a lot of women I think are striving for. And a lot of them don't have what I have, which is the support to be able to try to have it all.
So then, how does a woman go out and get that?
Yeah, great question.
People, as an outsider, can be like, well, it's easy for you to say.
Of course.
Because you have it.
Of course.
You have it.
But I worked for it.
True.
I worked for it.
Would you say you worked harder for it than your male counterparts?
That's a tough question.
Not saying that, like, not that we would know essentially what it would be like to, like, go on maternity or paternity leave. Some people do, but to wear the multitude of hats as well.
Well, I often think that women feel like they have to work twice as hard to be given the same credibility as men. And I think, for me, it's almost the opposite. What I don't like about feminism sometimes is I don't like this idea that it's feminism versus men. Mm-hmm. Because in my opinion, it's not. Okay. In my opinion, it's how do we make feminists out of men? How do we help men support us so we feel empowered to be able to achieve what it is we're looking to achieve?
I really like that.
Thank you.
I really like that.
And when you ask me the question, how do you get what I have? I think sometimes it's really just fighting for it. Sure. And sometimes it's through creating relationships with other people and having mentors in the organizations you're working with to be able to say, I need help with this, or I need to be able to change this a little bit. The whole future of work is really at an interesting point right now, because as the millennials are coming in with their access to technology they've had since they were infants, I don't think a lot of them give a shit if you tell them to be there at 9. They're like, whatever, I got a phone, you find me, no big deal. So I think sometimes you have to fight for it, but I think it's also collectively as a society we can work towards it.
Okay. I know you were featured on the Women Up Conference.
I was, yes.
At our annual Treb Fest. I was there. It was amazing.
Thank you. Thanks.
It was such an empowering seminar to be a part of, even as a male, because it was they're operating at levels I can't even fathom right now. And it wasn't that I was looking at them as females. I was looking at them as just human individuals.
Yes.
Like, it's phenomenal. And I agree with you that I believe women have to work at least twice as hard.
Sometimes we do. There's no question. Sometimes we do. Sometimes it's, it's hard to break down those old patterns and those old molds. And, sometimes it feels like an uphill battle. But other times, I hear exciting stories.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend of mine who just had her third baby, not on purpose, and she her third son is 10 months old. And when I saw her last week, I said, what, are you going back to work? And she said, I am. And I said, that's amazing. Wow. I said, how are you going to manage with 3 young kids and the cost of daycare and just the whole juggle? And she said, well, I went in and I said, this is what I need to come back, and I need to have a little bit of flexibility in the morning, and I need to be able to sometimes work from home a couple of days a week.
Good.
And they said, sure, no problem. And I said, well, that's really interesting. And she said, well, the interesting thing is that our team, our leadership team that makes these decisions is now 50% women.
Wow.
And so I said, well, do you think it's the women that are the ones sort of fighting for this? And she said, maybe a little bit, but she said, I feel like in her organization anyways, she said, I feel like a lot of the men who are married to women like her are also now realizing the struggle that their wives are going through.
Yeah.
Some women want to stay home and raise kids, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I applaud them.
Yeah.
For me, it's not what I want to do. And so if it's not, how do you create harmony in your life while trying to achieve all the things you want to achieve?
So how do we build capacity then? As a former educator, I know that our educational system is failing the females that we're teaching, we're to be role models for. We're failing in that. So you had shared with us, then, if you want it, then go after it. Know that you're going to have a bit of an uphill battle at times. You may have to work 2x, 3 times as hard. Mm-hmm. But before getting to that point, what would you say we would need to do to collectively build more capacity in the younger generation? Because it's great. I get it. I truly do. I want even my daughter to get to a point where she's, exceeding every expectation here, there, under the sun. But do we have the sheer number of candidates that are capable of filling in these roles of leadership? Is it just a point where there actually are more males than there are females? And if so, why are there so less females capable of performing at this level?
Well, I don't think it's capability in terms of skill level.
Okay.
I think it's capability in terms of what the system looks like.
Okay.
I mean, in my parents' day anyways, men went out and had 3 martini lunches and the women stayed home, and it was like Mad Men. But, if you want more women in leadership, you have to change the definition of what leadership looks like.
Love it.
And, leadership doesn't have to mean FaceTime. It doesn't have to mean 5:30 cocktails after work. It doesn't have to mean, long weekends in the office away from your family. I think, the metrics around how you define leadership, I think, are evolving, and I think they need to continue to evolve, because the studies show that when you have, women on your executive team and when you have women on boards, they perform better than their all male counterparts.
Yes.
And so it's not that women aren't capable. It's not that there aren't enough candidates out there. I truly believe it's that the definition of work needs to change.
It does.
And I think that's why you're seeing so many women get into entrepreneurship, because they have control over their own destiny. And just because you pick your kids up at 3 doesn't mean you can't be super successful and you're not capable of running your own business. Right?
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please stay tuned for part 2 next week. As always, be great, be kind, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.